So it's creating live broadcast. All right, I guess we're live. So hey guys, this is Richard back with Cosmic Human Design. Interviewing a very special guest today, Jarin Kenyon. And for those of you who may not know what Cosmic Human Design is, it's a new version of human design that I've created that uses true sidereal astrology rather than tropical astrology to calculate your chart, your body graph, which has all the different characteristics of your personality on it. And the results are actually quite different than in standard human design. We're going to be talking a little bit about those differing results today, among several other exciting topics. Now, Jarin here, he's been very instrumental in the entire creation of this new system because I was actually working with him. I'll give you a brief background on him first. So Jarin, I'll just read you the bio that he sent me. So Jarin is a motivational speaker, life coach, manifestation teacher, show co-host, and entrepreneur. He is passionate about and expertises on manifestation, law of attraction, human design, and the science of the mind. He runs his own business called Fast Track Your Dream Life. He is co-host of the Rise Up radio show, and he aspires to empower and educate millions of people into believing in and in achieving their greatest dreams and desires. So Jarin, I actually met you through a friend of mine named Paul Tokozolu, and yeah, like the second I saw a picture of you on stage, I was like, I've got to work with this guy. He just seems completely epic. And so I found that you did like human design coaching sessions, weekly coaching sessions, which I signed up for you to do with me. And basically, through those sessions, we eventually came to a discussion about astrology and human design. And I believe you're the first person who actually introduced me to sidereal astrology, even being a thing. I hadn't really even considered it that much, So yeah, before we get into that though, let me give you a few minutes to maybe explain more about your background in human design. And I know you've done a lot of conferences and talks, and you're a pretty important figure in the world of human design, in my opinion. So.
Well, thanks. I'm super excited to be on today, Richard. Interestingly enough, I can see that we're on the live video, so that's good. So you guys can see me. On our phone where you and I are actually talking, it keeps saying waiting for broadcast to start. So I'm actually staring at a blank screen. So if you guys see me looking over to the right on my computer, that's why I'm doing it, because I'm seeing blank while I'm looking over.
Okay.
But I think we got it going, at least at the very least. So yeah. So yeah, I have been exposed to human design since 2011. January 2011 was when I first came across human design. I had already been practicing as a life coach and motivational speaker, specifically around manifestation. So the common phrase of law of attraction that people are now waking up more and more to, but on a much higher scale than that. We'll probably touch on some of those topics. But in my manifestation process, which I call going vertical, connecting to your higher self, the spirit, the non-physical intelligence within you, I wanted to be part of the new astrology / numerology on the planet. So I put out one day, I remember I was sitting with my mother in Los Angeles. She was out visiting me. I was living in LA at the time. And I wrote about it. And no sooner than later, two weeks later, I think, I was at a seminar in California, and I got brought to it through a gentleman who was almost working on a separate project with The Secret, with some of the people from The Secret. Very well known, amazing guy, Brandon Blinn. Shout out to him. He's who brought me to human design. But then I went on a pilgrimage to India 2 weeks later. And when I was in India, the second day there, the guru that I was following, his name is Dr. Pillai, out here in the West. He mentioned human design was going to change the world. And I'm sitting there and I go, whoa, you got to be kidding me. I came across it out in California through the New Thought thinkers and the Western kind of flair of entertainment. And then here I am with this Indian guru, and he's talking about human design all in the same few weeks. So at that point is when I realized that this was the real deal, and I needed to start to explore it more and more. So when I came back from India, I set an appointment with Brandon, and he described my design for me. And then we ended up getting into, he had a program called Manifesting Greatness at the time, which was for individuals, but also for corporate businesses. And he wanted me to join in with him a little more deeper. And within a few months, we had a big call going, and then we ended up working in a corporate setting with 200 employees in upstate New York, which is originally where I'm from. So there was an irony there. But yeah, there's definitely an irony there. But so within a few months, now we're working with 200 people, well, about 100 at a time, on human design and getting them aligned in their vertical intentions. So that would be, practicing journaling and focusing on your goals and putting energy into it, as well as breaking them into groups and having them understand how the different types work and the different authorities work, and get into a little bit of the centers. But it was more, the basics to get people going. And I was hooked from then on. And, fast forward 10 years, and I've been working with probably, I don't know, I've probably done 1,000 charts in my day. And, some people just once, some people for years and years. I think human design is the most powerful system on the planet that I call kind of the human internet. It's what we are. It's how we're connected. It's how we're connected to the universe in this human realm, as well as how we're connected to each other. It is the most powerful system of, individualization, as far as what makes you unique. It's not just your general astrology reading or general, cards or numerology. All those things are part of it, but we know how much more advanced and specific it is. And so the first thing I always say is I value this system more than anything. However, it also is a system of limits, which is truth. And your real power does not have any limits. And your real power was before any systems were even started. So you have to be aware that you are more than your mind, your body, and even more than your human design. However, you are subject to your human design, just like I am subject to being a man who can't have a baby, right? So I like to give that example because some people, even people that know human design are kind of like, no, it's limiting me too much. I can do anything. I don't have to follow that. And I say, well, inevitably your will can overcome everything. But if that were the case, then I'd be able to make myself have a baby, or I would be able to, turn into a woman. And I don't have that desire, joke, but I don't have that ability to do something like that yet. I haven't risen to that awareness and that ability. So I am subject to my genetics, which is my whole point here. I'm subject to predisposition information, which is stored in my body physically, but as we know in human design, even more than that, in my genetic makeup that makes me function in a certain way. So it is the most powerful system to be able to use along with your God self, your higher self, your spirit self that travels through all time and space, right here on this planet, to be able to function and move faster, work more intuitively, and then obviously work more synergistically within the masculine and feminine balance that human design represents. So for those of you that know human design very well, this is not new to you. And for those of you who, are just getting going, I definitely encourage you to go down this rabbit hole. At least know the basics. Richard knows far more than me when it comes to the complications of it and the specifics. But I can tell you that I have lived at least what I thought, which is getting to the next part, was my design as much as I could. And I've watched it work amazingly and magically live, even on stage, working with groups, watching how I know other people's design along with mine can trigger them, they trigger me, and we function as a unit. So I've seen the magic. It's like superheroes on a TV show or on a movie, right? The Avengers. This is how we can function when we know each other's designs, and most importantly, when we operate within our own. Now, having said it, to finish what kind of brought us to this point, I think, Richard, is that, several years ago, I realized that, your conventional Western astrology, tropical astrology, was completely inaccurate and a lie. And at that time, I said, well, that's got to connect with design somehow, because obviously astrology is one of the major components of design. So I was thinking that this isn't right. And I spoke with other sidereal astrology leaders as well as other human design people. But you could never really get an answer. It was either complete denial or, well, I don't know what to do. And so for years, I just kind of let it go. However, vertically, you know, the power of our intention, I said, I'm going to be at the forefront of bringing this out. I'm going to come across a person or people who who have the ability to do this. And I have many friends around me that'll say that we put energy into it, and they know that I have specifically to arrive to that person. And then, you know, last year when Paul connected you with me, Richard, and we started the process, it didn't take me too long to see that you had the potential to be that person, especially when I saw that you were passionate about it. It wasn't just that, you know, your mental capacity, which is very genius. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but it is. And you have immense abilities, you know, within, you know, math and science as well as within technology. But I could see that you were passionate about it. So you loved it. And I remember that first day, I actually held back. I was like, well, I think we were like 5 sessions in or so. And I said, you know what? I'm going to have to tell them about this. Not to get you to do anything, because at that time I didn't really know you were going to go to this level, believe me. But I said, I at least got to tell them for 2 reasons. I wanted you to know about the sidereal astrology because I always bring it to people because it's, you know, the accurate math. Of course, you've even made it even more accurate, so it's pure. But I knew that give you that info because that's what I do with people. But second, I'm like, man, he might be able to do something with this. Although I wasn't saying this to you at first, but I remember as soon as I mentioned that you weren't into astrology, you're like, yeah, I don't really identify with it that much. It hasn't fit with me. And of course I know it didn't because you knew innately that it wasn't you. The regular horoscope readings and all these things they give are just completely a lie, to be honest with you. But most people don't know that. They think it's correct, but it's not. And you said, you know, well, okay, let me look into this. And then I guess that dove you into the rabbit hole, and you had a point where it just clicked and you knew, and then you started putting together how to make it correct. So in my final intro here, I'll just say I'm amazed by what you've done. I know that you have put the actual math behind the system that is the king system to me on the planet for awakening and for quantum manifestation, the ability to manifest not just in your mind or emotions, but in your entire physical body, which is obviously where the real power sources are. So you put it together, and then just recently, guys, I finally was ready to have him actually look at my chart because I'm like the perfect person in this situation. Not only that I wanted this to happen and believed in it, and then now it's come through by me allowing it and allowing someone else to be able to do it when it's not my skill set. It's not where I can put my time and energy either. And, you know, I wasn't ready because I've had years of programming it. I programmed it into me, literally like a supercomputer, the major elements of it. And how am I going to decondition myself from all this and get into something new? But thankfully, I listened to my own intuition, which is, you know, my authority is still my gut. And even in the new human design, in the cosmic, it's still my gut. So I followed that and waited to the right time. And then, you know, now here we are having this broadcast today, and Sunday you'll be on the Rise Up radio show. But I figured, well, I'm going to have to really get into this, and I want to learn from the one who knows it. And I look to you as literally one of the human design pioneers on the planet. I believe this. I'm not trying to brag him up. I'm just telling the truth. You will not find this information anywhere. And he really, really knows his stuff. So he gave me a session earlier this week, and it was like, so me, there's no way to even describe how accurate it was to hear the real me, not to hear a me that I've tried to be, I've been told to be, or you could call it even the matrix system from its source of shadow, wanting me to be off, wanting me to be out of tune with reality, out of tune with how I fit into it. And now to actually kind of be stripped of this at this eclipse time, right? At this amazing time that we're in after the 2 eclipse, to be able to be stripped of it and then have someone like you be able to actually tell me who I am. And now I'm already starting to function as how I really want to be instead of who I was trying to be. And that's the background of all this, because I've still been teaching human design in conventional up until the point where I feel comfortable that I even know what I'm doing with this new version. And as of this week, you've made me feel comfortable. All my new clients are going to go on the cosmic. I'm shifting all my old clients and people that have been studying design for a long time onto it, because it's time we have the truth and it's time we can go forward. And once we get through this little birthing process of having to reprogram ourselves back to who we really are, or just get educated in this in the beginning if you're just starting with human design. There's nothing more important in 2021. And I've always said that I believe human design is going to be the biggest thing on the planet. Much like the internet was in the 90s, right? When it just exploded on the scene and it changed everybody's world. That's what I believe human design is. It's blowing up all over the planet. There are millions and millions of people following it. I have literally moved into cities and started the process. And now there are, there are towns that have hundreds of people following it, dozens of people teaching it, just from me showing up and expressing it, which proves the design mechanics work, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But what I see is they catch on to it and it relates, and people like to be connected to others, and they want to know themselves and on how other people function so that they can improve relationships, improve performance, and all those kind of things. And it's only going to grow and grow and grow. And most real teachers that are into any kind of self-discovery or manifestation teaching, they kind of put it in their toolbox because it really helps you understand the individual, and it really helps people. And I just think that this is the real root of the new beginning of human design, and where it's really going to go, and how it's really going to liberate the planet to freedom.
Wow. Well, thank you, Jarin, for that like ringing endorsements throughout. So yeah, I wanted to talk a little more about the kind of synchronicities that happened between us to first get me started with cosmic human design. And I actually do think you were the catalyst for me in order to come up with all this stuff. Like, yeah, that day you told me about sidereal astrology and all the success you'd had with it, then I just got the idea in my mind, well, wouldn't your human design planets change if you were using that different astrology? I think at first you said no, because, that's what people have been telling you to say, or what they had said throughout the years. But, I wasn't going to be satisfied with that. So that week I actually did a ton of research on astrology, sidereal astrology. And that's when I actually encountered even another kind of astrology, which is the astrology I use now, true sidereal astrology, through Athen Chiminti's website, masteringthezodiac.com. I just stumbled upon it. And intuitively, I worked out how, like, of course the planets would change, because literally if your sun gate is going to be in a totally different sign, then your sun is going to be activating a totally different gate in human design. So just intuitively you can think about it like that to see how that makes sense. And of course all the other planets will be different as well. So yeah, and then over a couple period of weeks or so, I think I was like coming back to you every week with something new I thought I would figure it out, or I guess one of the real hallmark points for me was when I actually constructed the true sidereal human design mandala wheel, where it showed how all the gates linked up with all the true sidereal constellations. I think at that point you said something like, he did it, or something like,
yeah.
So that was kind of a really important moment for me. And I don't think I would have been able to do any of this without your continued support and feedback, man, because you really helped me out a lot. And even testing all this stuff, you and a lot of other people as well, who kind of let me try out all these different charts I was making, which weren't the correct charts, but were like stepping stones on the way, and stuff like that. So yeah, Jarin is absolutely a key piece of cosmic human design. And yeah, I'm so glad, I'm so happy now that I finally got to do a reading of your chart for you, so that you could, really see your full cosmic design, and I can't tell you how happy I am to see how well you resonated with it, man. Yeah, that's, so for me, that's that feels really good.
Well, hey, just absolutely. I'll be honest, everybody. I'm not just jumping on it because I want it to be correct. Like extremely critical. And remember, after years of programming, it's even harder than just starting new, you know, in a sense, when you really believe something. So I didn't just want to like say it's correct, but every single point checked, everything. You know, the mechanics point to it, but also the way that you were able to explain it and connect the dots and then make it relatable to me was, it was just too much. So I know it's correct for me. And you know, it's a big deal. But let's just be honest, since, you know, everybody here that's in this page, you know, this group page, obviously you've been studying about it or learning about what Richard has to share with us. And many of you probably were waiting for this to happen. You probably knew too that, hey, we got to make the science and the math of this correct. But the conventional astrology that says all signs are 30 degrees is completely inaccurate. So there's number one. They're not all 30 degrees. Some are very, you know, small, like Scorpio. Some are much bigger. So automatically that's off, because they're not all equal pieces of the pie. When you look up into the stars of what real astronomers see, you know, the signs are not equal sizes. So that's a whole lie. Then there are 13 signs, not 12, right? So that all throws all that off. And then there's the precision, which we all know about, for that, you know, we're constantly, you know, as we circulate around the galaxy, adjusts us and doesn't make it what it is. We're not in the age of Pisces anymore, which was the time of Christ. We've entered into the age of Aquarius. So, you know, that tilts at what, another 8 degrees or everything. So the reality is that even if your sign doesn't, even if your type, let's just say, or your major sign in astrology doesn't change, which for some it doesn't, it's a very minuscule amount. It's like 15% or 10%. You have to actually be born like what, in the last 5 days of your sign to where it still equates.
Yeah,
but
something like that.
You would know more than me, but it's roughly some low percentage. But the reality is even if your major ones doesn't change, I bet you if you look through your Mercury and your Moon and your, you know, Mars and all that, 70% of them will change. And then what that does do is the sign chart, it just completely changes it, because all you need is one gate extra active to connect to another one, and you've got a channel, and you just completely changed your type. So everything changes, and it's all based on just inaccurate math. 1 + 4 isn't 9, you know, it's 5. And that's kind of where it's at. And all you got to do is readjust it. It was hard. It's not easy. And then be able to get it into a program. But once it's right, it's right. And now we have the accurate information that we were imprinted with what the planets actually were in the sky and are situated in the sky, not some false thing based 2,000 years ago, or inaccurate representations of what the sizes are, where these neutrinos and information could be, you know, they're not going through the old system's planets that they say they are. It's going through blank space. And then where it is actually going through is where it is actually going through. So, you know, it's like completely revolutionizing the way that we actually have the accurate information of what we were imprinted with. And what that means is, you know, there obviously was a purpose, just like this whole ascension. But in reality, if you want to call it you as a soul that chooses to go into this human suit and picks Jarin and Richard, this is who you picked to have as your suit, not that other one, which was convincing us and manipulating us to be something that we are not, which is a whole other deeper aspect of where that came from. But for now, it doesn't matter. We just get to be evolving to the point where now we can know the truth, which is makes sense if everybody's watching this is thinking about it, of the changes that are going on in the world and how everything else is being brought to this truth. Everything, government, education, society, everything, if you look at it, is all happening when? In 2021. So we are at that perfect time when some bigger power of the universe has triggered us to get to this point where we're able to even get human design correct.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, in my opinion, the all the standard like logic and justifications for human design actually seem to me to support using true sidereal astrology over tropical astrology, because of the whole neutrino mechanic, and how neutrinos are the basis by which we're programmed through stars and planets. You know, the neutrinos pass through planets. Neutrinos travel with light approximately. So therefore, where in true sidereal astrology, what matters is where is that the stars and planets are represented as they appear to be in the sky, which means as the light is coming from, where the light is actually coming from. Therefore, where the neutrinos are also coming from, and therefore where the true programming is coming from. So yeah, in my opinion, the whole neutrino mechanic supports true sidereal astrology far more than tropical astrology as being the, astrology that human design should be using and should have been using all along. Yeah, yeah, Jarin, I'm sure a lot of people are curious to hear about some of the specifics of your new chart and how you feel about
Okay.
those. So maybe you could detail us some of the like major differences,
Yep.
and how you feel about those and how you feel about the new chart in general.
Well, okay, perfect. First of all, let me just say for you on your end, because remember, I was originally his, human design supporter here. Um, looking at it as me as teacher and you as student at the beginning, which is completely changed, which I wanted to, by the way. um, you just like you didn't identify with real astrology, or the not real, but the conventional Western astrology, tropical. You didn't identify with your design chart either. And I remember you being a manifester in the old design, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you could already see that you weren't feeling it correct. And I could see that you weren't functioning as that. I was watching, because you're a manifesting generator now, correct?
Right.
I was watching your trigger effects. We were bouncing off of each other much as MGs would do. And so it was interesting to know that you could intuitively feel what was right without even getting down this rabbit hole. You knew it wasn't correct. So I just wanted to give you credit for that. And I could see it. My gut's even going now, knowing how during that process, I knew that it wasn't fitting for you. And I was not myself seeing you function that way, which was the first time that I've seen it, because most others are so conditioned into it without even knowing what it is, that they function as their Western astrology tells them, literally. I mean, I can see it. And so it's worked for many people because they've kind of programmed it in or been programmed it in on some layer. But you were deeper at the root, feeling the essence of it not correct. So I wanted to say that. And for me, there's a few parts of my chart that I just would not have been able to let go of. And I told Richard that before. I'm like, well, there's no way I don't have this busy charisma channel still. There's no freaking way I don't have it with how I feel in my body. I don't know how that would even be possible. So that was one thing, which we'll get to. And the other one was I really feel like the profile most simplistically helps identify it for people. Your profile really can cause that switch and that awakening. And so I was a martyr heretic. I was a 3-5,
I was a
and I had,
352.
and
And
so were you, right?
yeah.
Right. And so I was trying to live like that for a long time. And I think what happened is when I found out that I'm actually a 6-2, which actually you were able to describe to me better than I had heard it described before. When you were described, yeah, specific to me of what it means to not just be a hermit, but to be the 6 and the 2. Then I was able to look back and say, well, yeah, I could see the first chapter of my life had the martyr quality, which it did. But I could also see that prior to that, prior to my design knowledge of being a 3-5, 2008, 9, 10, let's say, I was functioning as a 6-2, and my life was different. Let's just call it that. Let's say it was easier and it was more fluid, regardless of everything else that we're going through. It was more fluid. And then I could see how switching to that 3-5 was causing me to kind of get into experiences because I thought that's what I was supposed to do, when really they weren't me. I was wanting to do it from more of a distance, let's say. The 2 that's got his own, space. And then when he comes out, he does it from more of a future-oriented, higher aspect kind of knowledge, which is what I'm really excel at. People can probably see that in me. But I was trying to do the other one. So once I realized what I actually am in my profile, that's the initial simplistic but big time click of, okay. And then you go down the rabbit hole. The way that you're able to describe my mind and my brain and, my body and being fixated physically. I need to be fixated in the moment. You guys can feel probably my focus in the moment, but it's not a mind or brain thing like I was thinking before, because all my other stuff was different in my old charts too. My environment is different. What I want to live in with being in a marketplace is different than the wide valley. Although I like the wide view, I want to be around people, not alone on a mountain. So that's more of an apartment complex aspect, which you had mentioned to me, and that's completely correct. So things like that. Now, but what stayed is I remained an MG, and that doesn't happen for everybody. Just for me, it did. I remained sacral, so I had those quality elements. Thank God I don't have to completely erupt all those. But the 34 to 20 didn't just stay. It became stronger because it's in my north and south nodes on both sides of the design and the personality, which you could identify with seeing how I act, and
Yeah.
then seeing how much I knew beforehand that there's no way I could lose that. And I didn't. So it's like I did know myself even regardless, and thankfully it's there to show me where it's actually represented. So, you know, my mission is obviously to speak and speak ecstatically, but when triggered, and I'm conscious and subconscious out of this. And so the fact that there's elements, I get, just to simplify it, that I still have that I know is correct, adds more to it. But just looking at all the rest, even if it had completely changed, it's all the real me. So now I think, you know, if I had known this 10 years ago, where would my life have been? You know, I would have done major things differently, having known that. Not channels and gates and all those, yes, but even more so my profile, literally, of how I lived in my life, as well as looking at the, you know, the four, you know, prime gifts of the gene keys. You know, here I am identifying with the 55 sun being my conscious sun, and I don't even have it in my chart. I mean, I'm seeing it all around, and I identified to it, but I'm receptive to it. It's not even me all the time. And now to know that I'm actually the 60, and I'm still breaking people's limits, which is what I'm here to do, but I do it in a different way than I was viewing it before, and it would have changed everything. So I'm grateful to have reached this point and know that I can, you know, adjust myself, and to know that now we can get this information to people who either don't know about design and they're going to get it correct from the start, or you can get it people that are so into design but they don't realize that it's not really them, and they can get flipped over because it's going to make such a huge difference in our lives. Even just learning some of the basics of where we thrive, you know, and some of the basics of how we function. But if we try to function that other way, man, it's not you, and you try to be someone you're not. And, you know, that's what was happening to me, albeit conscious for the last 5 years that this was the case, and that at some point someone would bring it out. I'd be part of it. I could help steer it to get it correct, but someone else was going to have to do it. And I just put out the energy and came across you, and then you're the one that did it. And now I get to flip, completely be the student. I'm a student to human design again, as much as I, you know, teach people it every day. And it's a whole revolutionary experience. And I want to just say this to give it back to you, Richard, is you were mentioning how with the way our 60 and our 3 connects, you know, it's kind of like my life's work, because at 60 is my life's work, like pushed the new beginning through you. And you can enlighten and educate on that. But now I'm seeing it even with, you know, Richard's going to be on our show Sunday, and Greg, one of the most important people in my world, Greg Schumacher, he has the 3 as well. So I can see how I pushed him through his limits to have a new beginning with what we're doing with that too. But it's coming from an energetic place instead of a different kind of an element that I was trying to get it at before. So it's just, so we could see even how we function and how that's accurate. And so this, it's like, where are we going to go from here? Like, people are already excited. Greg's already even excited, saying, man, we are going to take off now that we have this knowledge and Richard on the team. And it's true. We're all going to really be able to function from the truth, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting how your life's work, your personality sun, your 60, connects with, you know, obviously in the body chart, the 60 connects with the 3. It's like the base individual channel of the whole chart, the channel of mutation. And so I've got the 3 but not the 60, and Jarin has a 60 but not the 3. So, and the 3 really is about making a new beginning, right? Which is, I guess, kind of what I'm doing with cosmic human design. And so it's so interesting how, yeah, how I do view Jarin as the catalyst for it. And like, without his energy, you know, I can't say that I would have been able to do this. So that's yet another very interesting synchronicity there. And another thing I wanted to touch on with these charts is, yeah, you alluded to it a bit in your talk, but there's been a lot of people who, myself included, who like find elements in the new chart that are like represented it's a similar energy to something that was in the old chart, but activated through a different means. Like,
Right.
for example, for me, I used to have the 62 personality sun, which is all about details and words and logic and stuff like that. But instead of that, in my cosmic human design, I have the the channel of concentration, the 40 52
To nine.
now, yeah, which is the format energy for the entire logic channel. So it's like that logical energy is represented in another like way, but I feel it's the more correct way because really my entire body is filled with that logical energy, and if I'm not concentrated or like working on something, I just feel really bad. I need to dissipate that energy by focusing on something and getting that done. And I think you were talking the other day about how you used to have the 45-21, the will channel in your old
Yeah.
chart, and now you have a very similar energy in the 26-44 channel, the channel of the
Right.
transmitter. So yeah, maybe you could say a few words about that, because I thought that was very enlightening what you said about that.
Yeah. Well, I used to have the 9 to 52. So I'll just say that. Now I do not, but I did. You do. So I can relate to that. But as far as what you're speaking about, the 21 to 45, yeah, I had it and it was in my moons. So it
Mm,
was an extreme drive, and I have made it work. People know I've made that work. I've programmed myself to be able to will things forward with what I want. But the reality is it takes too much effort, and I don't need to do that. But however, my point in this is, well, wait a minute. I felt like I still had, an aspect of that business circuit, and I was like, well, okay, so I don't have the 21 to 45. I'm receptive to it. When I say I don't have, everyone realizes we still have it at times. We're being, conditioned by transits, or we're being conditioned by others. So it doesn't mean that like you never have what you're
yeah,
feminine to. That is
exactly.
not correct. So let's just say that. But I don't have it consistently is the situation. But I do have the 44 to 26. So it made sense to me. I'm like, okay, so it's just a different way in which it's engaged and in which I feel it, and mechanically how it works. But the energy of that is kind of still there. And so even looking at that, you start to see, okay, so it's not like everything is erupting. There are aspects that you will be able to notice. It's just subtle differences of where they come from, how they work with other people. And, so, I think that you have to have an open mind and be willing to be receptive for renewal to even venture into cosmic human design. If you want to, this is what it's like. If we want to stay in 3D and stay in survival and stay in the comfort zone, we can, right? You can stay in your comfort zone in your world. You can keep your job, you can keep your house, you can keep whatever you want to stay safe, and not be happy. If you don't want to be happy, that's fine, right? That's not the truth. You're living a lie, but you can do it to be safe. Well, now the universe is pushing us through and out of those things, so it's getting very difficult for us to hold back. We have to move with the current. It's the same thing with human design. You can know it for years. You can use it for years. I have not had another job other than teaching manifestation, human design, gene keys, other things for 10 years now. This is all I do. So I'm just like many here who have identified to a lot of these things. But the reality is, if we want to go through the birthing canal and get out of comfort zones, this is what causes us to get to greater freedom. This is how we break limits, right? Here's my life's work speaking here, in a sense. You have to break your limits, or you're living a lie, because evolution is always propelling you forward. There's always new information. There are no facts. The only fact to me is energy, frequency, and vibration. Everything else is just a story and a game. In the law of time, probably, which Richard dives into as well, explains that in different words. But we have to go through what's new, and it can be uncomfortable. And this is the point. You can say, well, I don't really want to go into it because I can't handle it, or it's too much, or this or that. But the reality is, if you get through the initial parts, it's going to liberate you, just like leaving the job, leaving the relationship, leaving the house, whatever it may be that you don't like anymore. You can become free, and you can evolve to your next chapter. And that's what cosmic human design is doing. It's evolving us to our next chapter. And once we get through it, we're going to be so grateful, right? But while you're in it, it can be awfully confusing, and it can even make you feel tight, friction, lied to, confused by your own ego, right? Which we're going to talk about on Sunday's show. I know, talking about the ego, the collective ego, the individual ego. You know, my ego is completely challenged by this situation. And I also say to the universe, why the hell do I have to do this? Why am I going through this? I don't want this. Well, the reality is I did want it. I consciously manifested the truth. And you brought it about, so I'm in my experience of it happening. So am I going to run from my manifestation, or am I going to embrace it? So that's how we need to look at life. Are you going to run from your dreams, or are you going to embrace it? And oftentimes, new things come in, friction happens because you're about to birth into something new. So I encourage people to go into the rabbit trail. Know that even if you're in this group, you've been brought to the front of human design change on the planet. And so you get to learn as a pioneer years before, you know, relatively, before it gets to everyone else. And you don't need to identify with the groups that say, well, this is not correct, or even the people in this group that put out negative statements. They have a right to say what they want, but that doesn't mean you have to identify with the clique just because it's established dogma. You know, you can move forward and at least be open to explore it, and then see what it does for you and realize, well, you're not alone, because many of us are on the pioneer of that. And you should be, and you can be grateful and feel blessed that you've even brought yourself to that point where you're ready to look in your own mirror, in a sense, the real mirror, not some false mirror.
Yeah, you know, I think I was lucky in a lot of ways that I only really started learning about human design about 2 years ago now.
Right.
And so I was kind of free from a lot of that conditioning to begin with, which I think in the end made it a lot easier for me to just quickly jump into this new astrology and you know, kind of not really care about or not have any attachments to that astrology, that tropical astrology that we know is incorrect.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah,
I agree.
and yeah, I think that the group, everyone in the group has been great for the most part, and all of them seem to be really open-minded. And because you really do have to be open-minded to give the
Yes.
sport a chance, because if you go into it thinking that the standard chart is absolutely correct, you know, and you already are sure that, then of course you're not going to be able to see how the cosmic human design chart, you know, it's not even going to be a contest at all. You're just going to automatically dismiss it, right? Um, so yeah, just have an open mind about it. And it's been amazing the amount of people who've written me with feedback about you know, how much it's changed their lives. And, you know, people told me after they read their incarnation cross on the cosmic chart, they literally started to weep, you know, and because it summed up so
Yeah.
well, they're like lifelong prayers for their life and their soul, you know. Um,
Yep.
so
Yep. The key is feeling it, right? It doesn't matter what design system it is, we're feeling. It's the feeling that causes openness and change. You can think later and you can analyze later, but you have to feel your way through it. And as long as you have an open heart, open mind, you can decide, hey, this isn't right for me, this isn't, but you can't know unless you explore. That's the whole point of the universe experiences, is to explore. This is what humanity is really on earth to do, is explore themselves, explore others, and explore the world, let alone the universe. So you need to explore what's new, explore what might be more evolved, explore what just might have changed. But you don't have to program yourself to any of it, really. You can feel what's right for you and accept it for a while, and then at the right time make changes. That's what I did with this whole situation. Richard's changed this 6 months ago, and I just came around to where it was my time to go through it. So just have an open mind and just, you know, intend on what helps your life the most right now, and go in steps with it. And again, don't identify yourself over with anything too much, even though I do encourage, to an extent, identifying yourself with your new cosmic human design, because it is what you came as. Inevitably, you get to write your own story and you get to write your own reality. So why get so stuck or get so lost in, what's external, right? Go back to what's inside of you and what feels right for you. And if you check in with your real feelings, which are pure, not your conditioning and filters that we've had put on our minds, then you'll feel the truths for you, and then just play around and let the chapters of your life unfold. And this may be a big chapter to help you free yourself and get yourself actually out of the entirety of the old 3D negatively influenced control matrix system.
Yeah, and I can't emphasize enough how important it is to listen to your feelings, to listen to your inner truth, because your mind might have all these different programs running, that are actually false programs, and you might not even know about them. But your feelings, it's very hard to fool your feelings. And, I've tried to convince people as best I can that, logically, and whatnot, graphically, how cosmic HD makes sense. But of course, there still are quite a few people who, basically refuse to acknowledge any of that and want more proof, more everything. But in the end, the real proof is in our feelings and how we feel, how the chart makes us feel. Does it actually feel like you? You alone know the answer to that. And so that, I think, is the real proof right there. Because
Absolutely.
it has such deep resonance with how we feel deep inside who we really are, in my opinion. Okay. So I wanted to talk a bit about manifestation in general. You are a manifestation coach, after all, and you also are still working on a manifestation writing app. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I am. So, yeah, I mean, if we look at things vertically and horizontally, and this is my wording, okay? I look at the vertical as space and the horizontal as time for me personally. And what I mean by that in space is when you set an intention or you have a goal, you have a desire, you have a destiny, a destination to arrive to, you plug it in vertically. Just like if you were going to a grocery store and you plug it in on the GPS, you don't know where it is, you plug it in the space of which you want to arrive to, and then you arrive there through time. And through time, there are elements of, is it going to rain? Is there a lot of red lights? Are people going to pull in front of me? Will there be an accident? Also, you can accelerate the gas pedal. You can go faster. You can go through the red light. You can take a shortcut. All these things are a benefit along the horizontal plane, which, even though human design, especially authority, right, and strategy, touch on that vertical aspect or more towards it, they're still playing around with what's around you and what's unknown and what's outside of you, that you can accelerate the gas pedal or pump the brakes with and know how to do it. So there's tricks to it. But the reality is your real power is separate than all that. And that is what's vertical. That is what started the universe when they said, let there be light. When you hear that, God said, let there be light, because everything is originated from sound. Sound is the building block of all things in my book, still to this day. And sound is what creates all things. Sound is the quantum that causes light. It causes power. It causes stars. If you look at the Big Bang, there was the bang, then you see all the stars and the planets and experiences and senses and time. All that other stuff is a result of the sound, to me. And that's what I've learned, from Indian gurus and from other people, that sound has what created the light. In fact, the universe didn't even have light for several 100,000 years. And I know this is all relative and we'll all learn the truth. And so a lot of what I may be saying may be incorrect to an extent, but light comes after. So what I tell people is your sound, your vibrating body is what's controlling and creating your reality, your body and your reality. Okay. And any desire that you have is a destination that you want to arrive to in space. So you in space want to create matter, new matter, new space, a new movie screen. But it takes a certain amount of time to get there, albeit based on your belief system, because you can do it without time. Human design can accelerate your time. I call this time travel techniques, right? Human design can accelerate your time. Knowing that on Mondays the moon is influencing and on Fridays Venus is influencing, knowing your astrology aspects can speed up time. Knowing I'm going to embrace my shadow and my gene keys. I'm not going to fight or flight it. That's a time travel. But they're still all along the time plane and a result of what you're being conditioned by. If you consistently go back to the energy that is within you and you give the information of where you want to go on the GPS system to the vertical aspect of manifestation, this is the real powerhouse of what makes the world and what you are living in it, what you're living in it. So you have to spend time, I call it F3, focus, feel, and fuel. This is part of my Mach 9 system I call for manifestation, Mach 9, Mach speed. I do things in 3, 6, and 9. A lot of it's based on Tesla and that kind of technology and energy, frequency, vibration. Breaking it down, you have to spend time, okay? This is part of the work equation, so I'm going to throw it out there for the science people on here. When you see the equation work equals force times distance, force is mass times acceleration times distance. I broke that down because that's really the equation to the universe as far as I'm concerned thus far. Because work equals energy, equals matter, equals manifestation, equals everything. The force is the sound, and it's your thoughts and feelings. So mental and acceleration, mass and acceleration can be broken down into frequency and energy, or, in a sense, masculine and feminine, or in a sense, thoughts and feelings. So those are relative to your acceleration of what you're able to get to in the moment and how high your frequency is tuned to, or what your frequency is tuned onto. But the other element that is distance, right? So the work equation is about moving a rock. How much energy is required, how much work is required to move a rock. On the physical plane, you could think, okay, it weighs 100 pounds and I'm going to bring it 1,000 feet. Distance and time can be switched. So if you got to take the rock 10 times farther, it doesn't matter if you're going at the same speed, it's going to take you longer. So space and time are related, so you can flick it and say, well, if time is a big deal, distance is a big deal, then I got to realize more time, forget my force and everything else, is going to manifest my world. So you have to spend time on your vertical thoughts and feelings, which is the force, and that's the combo that manifests what your world is from the future or the present you, not from the old dictating systems of karma, which was cause and effect. It's caused you to even have this life and those thoughts and feelings to begin with. So you got to step into your God self, which is the vertical. You got to put out the energy and rise up. Then you got to put out your force and manifest your world. Then when you're done, and I teach it through writing, okay, one way, because writing is an action, and we won't go into it now unless we want to, but when you write down your goals on paper, let's just say, then you let it go. Now you just live, and you live your human design elements where you get out of your mind, because it's only, 11%? Think about it. There's 9 centers, right? You get into your motors and your emotions and your will and your adrenaline and your doing and your senses and all these other things, and you live. And you know that human design and other things can help you do the right things, do the easier things, do the more fluid things, do the synergistic things, do the enzymatic reactions that create and can create manifestations, such as me and Richard were the enzymes that created cosmic human design. Okay, these kind of things are important, but a lot of people get lost in all those things in the story, because that's what the horizontal is. It's a journey, it's an experience, it's a story. Okay, and conditioning, all of it's real, but that's what it is. You can get lost there and forget your real power is to go vertical. So literally, but that involves stripping yourself as much as it does being able to flick the light on, right? Or enhance the voltage. You also have to strip off filters. It's like having a lamp where you have the lamp's on, but you have a rag over it so the room is dark, right? I learned this example from Satguru, who's online. It's a great example. He said 2 ways to involve yourself is you can amp up the voltage, which is a masculine way of looking at it, and you can also strip off the filters that are blocking you. You take the rag off. So we have these rags that we need to take off of us to be able to manifest what we want. Well, we do that vertically too, which means you have to become the God or the observer, the aware being within you that knows you're not your mind, your body. You're not any of these things, although they are a suit. And you can properly look at them outside of conditioning, which even means in the human design system, you have to strip yourself from things that have conditioned you that you're not, view you as what you actually are. But all these things still get applied to the mechanics of manifestation, which is I create from the inside out by how much time and how much vibrational force. It is the force, just like in Star Wars. It's the force. How much I'm able to use on manifesting what I want to do to go, in a sense, forward in my world. So we need to remember that the power is inside of you, which I think authority is the closest to connect to that vertical alignment as I view it. Your intuition, it's like your feminine, it's like the goddess mother leader. Okay, it's as vertical as you can go. You have to get in touch with that, learn to follow them, then apply your thoughts to that and tell the universe what information you want it to know so that it can take you there, so that then you get in this car, such as plugging in the GPS, and now you're flying as a rocket ship instead of a horse and buggy. Cosmic Human Design will help give us that ship, but also just realizing your power as an intuitive God conceiver master inside of this precious body. And you can fly as a spaceship instead of in a horse and buggy. And that is determined by your attention, because time is attention. Your attention on you and where you want to go and what you want to feel and what you want to experience, then dropping it, getting out of the damn mind, which I've had a hard time with, like all of us here, getting out of the emotions. Emotions are 3D, mind is 4D. We're going to 5D. Use your whole physical human design vehicle, you know, if you want to say it, and your physical vehicle, and live and enjoy the story, enjoy the experiences, and embrace life with neutrality as much as you can. And when you get into those stuck periods, you can look at your charts, or you can, you know, talk yourself through it, speak with your subconscious consciously, and maneuver your way through it, because you're liberating yourself out of lifetimes of limitations, only to go to a new sense of limitation, but one that has far less than now.
Wow. That is amazing. I did want to touch on what you were talking about at the beginning with the power of sound and how that translates into the power of words.
Yes.
Because one of the main inspirations for Cosmic Human Design also is this book called The Cosmic I Ching, Oracle of the Cosmic Way, which is, you know, the authors claim to have written it in cooperation with the cosmic consciousness itself, and actually went over every word in line of the entire book with input from that cosmic consciousness. And in it, it outlines that there are these damaging words in our society currently. They call them projections, spells, and poison arrows that have various effects on us and keep us chained in a way to this, to our current institutions and our current ways of thinking, and actually create in part create the ego in us. Like the ego is not a natural part of our personality. It's kind of been integrated into us at childhood with all these false words and phrases. So humans have the unique gift of language, but language has such power that it's actually capable of creating a false consciousness if you use false words and phrases that aren't actually true. Then if you actually believe those false words and phrases, your entire reality is going to become completely different than the true reality. And similarly, you can project negative thoughts onto other people or nature and damage them as well. So yeah, what do you think? What do you think about that? What do you think about the notion that there are all these false words and phrases, false beliefs, you know, that we've been kind of indoctrinated into, that kind of get stuck in our mind like viruses, you know, and unless we get rid of them, then we're kind of trapped by them, you know?
Right. Well, for me, it starts with information controls perception, which controls behavior, right? David Icke explains that very well. The information outside of you can control your perception and then the way that you behave. So you can become subject to what you're told. Information, to me, again, fits within frequency, which is, at its root is sound, which we're using as words here, as Richard has said here. On, you know, on planet Earth, we use words to communicate, and a word is a sound. There is no more powerful thing in this universe, in a sense, than a word, to me. And your brain is a bunch of sound waves, right? It's a bunch of words going all over the place all the time. And we have bugs in the system, call it spells, like spelling, right? It's a spell casted upon us. Not all bad, some good, some with the intent to be good that were bad, you know, some just outdated, whatever it may be from the current place in reality that we were living, or that humanity has been living at. And so we have this program, the subconscious, as Bruce Lipton does very well, right? Your automatic program, which is 95% of your reality or more, much more for most human beings. And you're not conscious of much. Your free will is your conscious mind. It's your creative mind. It's what can, you know, make new and create what's never been created before. But you got this program running, and these programs are run from belief systems, which are broken down to words and information that you were told or that you experienced and started to believe yourself. Whatever that is, that's karma. So karma literally means action in Hindu. People have a strong word with karma. They don't like it. Oh, it means, you know, no, it just means action. It's just the universal force that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So what happens is, as you do it through time, obviously then it starts to become physical. Literally, it starts to become deposits in your brain and in your body and areas of density that are fixed energy, which can be good too. This is how you manifest. When you fixate neural pathways in your brain, and then your program is running, such as the program that was running to cause me to connect with Richard to do this. I drilled it in. But that's a positive phrase, words, things that I wanted to happen. We have so many that are negative and that are limiting based on what we were told from the past and what we believed reality to be, that are holding us back. So where it starts is changing your words and creating mantras, repetitive words, and in order to create new belief systems, yes, but literally to change the physiology of your body and of your brain, so that you're broadcasting the frequency and the information and the words of what you do want to experience. And it always starts going back inside. And yes, it starts with the words that you tell yourself. And also recognizing, as Richard's going to talk about, I'm sure, so well, including on Sunday, that the ego, which is not natural, however it's been placed on earth, is the other you talking. It's the mind trying to control. And it's very limited, and it's separate, and it really inhibits you from being what you really are. But it needs to also be embraced, not fighted, flighted from, accepted, honored to an extent, but told something different. You have to tell it something different. It's like your conscious mind needs to tell your subconscious what it wants to do next, because the subconscious continues to do it because it thinks that's what you want to do. It only does what it's told. So you have to use your attention and your conscious mind through new words to tell it to do something differently. Then the subconscious, which is what amplifies your life and your manifestation, will manifest that for you. But it starts with words and coming from your observer, or active participant observer. Okay, we're not just observers to reality. We are participating, and our masculine self is conditioning it. So it's more like, you're looking at it from your big eye, not your little eye, and your big eye, which has to become separate from your mind and your body and your emotions of the past, because the past is what your mind is thinking. Always, your mind is in the past. You have to get out of that, then program it, write some new codes, then the subconscious gets it, then you start to behave as such, and you get in alignment, and you'll naturally follow your design better, things like this. And then you'll start to manifest your world. But what's the source of it? The source is words. It is words. And you write your own story. You write your own reality. And this is why changing your words, as well as what I advise people, and my gift on this planet, what I'm here for to do, is to teach manifestation, especially through writing, okay? When you write your new story, you program yourself a new life, and you can create anything you want to create. But as much of it is positive, is reprogramming those negative ones until, neuroplasticity, right? Until you are able to get your attention on the new and off of the old, so that the old gradually dies because your brain doesn't give energy towards it. And that takes work and time and consistency. And just like exercise, you have to consistently do it through time. Same thing with this. Your brain muscles have to change consistently through time until eventually those old wounds that are false will die off within us, and we'll be functioning from a higher frequency of words and of thoughts and of how we view reality.
Yeah, wow, that's some really powerful stuff, Jaron. And while we're on the topic of words, I want to read you all a quick quote from this book. It's called Word Magic, actually. It's called The Powers and Occult Definitions of Words by Pao Ching. There's a very interesting chapter and segment here that relates to actually astrology and perhaps even human design. So let me just read you this passage really quickly. It says, to trap man, male and female, in the artificial matrix, the dark forces and their flesh and blood minions created very advanced technology to obstruct certain natural signals of the planets and the sun, allowing them to interfere with the natural communication process between nature and man. This also allows the dark forces to replace some natural signals of the planets and the sun with their artificial light codes. These artificial light codes are the codes of their artificial matrix, which is an artificial reality that is ruled by the dead. You notice how many words in our society have the word like corpse, like corporation. You know, it all means dead, deadness. And, you know, when the dark forces use certain words, spells, and technologies to broadcast the artificial light codes of the artificial matrix on Earth, people's DNA receives the codes, and then the codes are processed into information by their minds. Once that process is finished, the information is projected as encoded light into the external world. This process alters their natural reality to a certain degree, allowing the dark forces to create a reality that they want. The artificial matrix that is used by the dark forces to overlay Earth's natural matrix or reality is one of the greatest technologies for controlling people's minds. So I think that's very interesting what he says about how these dark forces use some technology to obstruct certain natural signals of the planets and the sun. I mean, to my mind, that sounds a lot like tropical astrology. People don't really think about tropical astrology as a technology, but you know, I mean, that's literally what it's doing. That's literally what tropical astrology is doing, because it's shifted, it's rotated. All the angles or angels of light are deflected a certain number of degrees from where they otherwise would be. And so we then see reality differently than it actually is, because we're receiving those artificial light codes.
Wow.
That's one possibility for what's going on with tropical astrology. And as I've said previously, I do think tropical astrology has the capability to create a global artificial consciousness field, a false consciousness field, where everyone is thrown off just a little bit from their true selves, and it causes a lot of chaos and disorder, confusion that way. It's a very subtle thing, but it has massive, massive, massive ramifications, if that's actually what's going on.
Yeah, I hope you read that also on Sunday. Yeah, no, yeah. And I think, you know, I guess going back to the beginning when you started with words, and they have negative meanings. They do, and modern languages are very limited. This is why, you know, Sanskrit and other types of languages like that have a higher frequency. And as you go back through time, they had even a higher frequency. So words have been put into our system to be more and more limited or dead. I saw one the other day from a Vicky Willoughby, who was a friend of mine who's always on our show. She put something up about, if you switch lived, L-I-V-E-D, what is it? Devil. And if you switch live, what is it? Evil. So the opposite of life is evil and death, and they're there, and they have it written in our words that we use without realizing it, that casts negative spells. And I'm not sitting here saying that lived is a bad word. I'm just showing you the reference that it's the very reverse of the devil. So we've had control mechanisms put in, and really it's humanity's words and then therefore actions that has created our own imprisonment, as much as artificial imprints even inserted into our matrix, let alone where what Richard is describing here of, astrology being a major element to that. And I can say, Richard, I've been saying what you just said. I was thinking myself for many years now and saying that with the false astrology as well, that something we don't think is such a big deal can be a huge deal. What it really all has to do with is disconnecting us, yes, from ourselves, but it also disconnects us from what's outside the Earth's matrix. We're outside of the rhythms and the patterns and the cycles of beyond this little Earth. We can look at it in terms of the whole galaxy and the universe and the solar system and everything being stuck. We've actually been kind of stuck behind Saturn. There's a little game going on that's been going on over there at Saturn planet, which is the planet of karma, but it's more than that. There's been a false karma put there, which I think has a lot to do with this, which really has to do with time, and time being so important. And besides astrology, we even look at our Gregorian calendar, right? It's all a lie, and it's thrown off women with their menstrual cycles, because it's not a month, it's 29 days, 28 and a half, 29, however that works, to such as a reflector's lunar cycle and design. So these things are all inaccurate to get us out of sync being the word, with reality, and therefore we are not harmonized with it. So it's almost like when it's hot out, we're putting our winter clothes on, and when it's cold out, we're going out in shorts, and then we're wondering, why is this not working? And we don't even realize it because we've been in it so long that we don't know that there is something different out there. So there's a lot of false aspects that have been put on us throughout this cycle that we've been in, right? But now that we've ended the cycle, which is what the whole 2012 time period about, which for me really was 2019 12/12, because that was our real 12/12/12 calendar date. We knew that we were going to arrive again to a place in space through a certain amount of time. Again, the whole goal is where your experience, where you are in space, but it takes a certain amount of time to get there. And there are cycles beyond the controller's control that have been controlling us, which is, oh shit, when we get to this period, there's going to be a big cycle of light that's going to cause humanity to ascend. And we have reached this place in space where this power is so strong, it's going to cause the environment to change. And even if they try to limit it, which they're trying to prevent it from happening, inevitably, it's becoming from a higher consciousness with more power, a higher court, so to speak, causing the environment to change, which we would call changing to 5. In a sense, you could label it changing to 5D. We're adjusting to the 5th dimension. And in that, all the things that are illusion have to come out, which is in our own individual lives of drama, as well as within the collective systems that are false to begin with. So we're watching them all change. And at the same time, everyone is given free will to play their own story. And the bad guys are in their own story too. They're doing what they think is right for them. It doesn't matter what we view as it. And yet the illusions are coming out, and they have to be stripped. Just like the Gene Keys tells us, you have to actually go through the experience to transmute the energy. You can't just fake it. You can have it inside, but then it has to be externally experienced differently. So we got to dig all these things up. And this is the process we're in right now. And everybody that's watching this or will watch this and is connected to us, you came here with this plan, such as the Pleiadian message tells you. I recommend everyone watch the Pleiadian message on YouTube, the 26-minute clip. But it's amazing. It'll explain why we're here, and that we are coded to go off. Our designs are coded no matter what to go off, and we're going to play out the story. But in a sense, we're in our own simulation of guaranteeing our ascension. And at the same time, by us vibrating higher and doing what we're doing through time, because it's going to be time, the rest of humanity that doesn't encode it in the same way, doesn't think the same way, doesn't have the same soul's experience, that's been here for a long time, maybe never been off Earth, so to speak, they will have a chance to choose something different. And our future generations are going to be able to live in the Eden that we desire and dream of. But what's our mission tribally, so this gets into the tribal channel, so to speak, in design, the tribal circuits, is we need to go there ourselves as best as we can and lead through image. And it's going to be opposite of what mainstream or many around you or many of the villains that you've created in your world or that you hired as actors to be that in your world, it's going to be the opposite of many of them, because through you blazing the trail, the grid is changing and the planet will change. But we get to live this now. So everyone here is a call out to say, we get to live this now, guys. It's happening right now. And right now we are at our hardest birth. So for many of you, especially the last few weeks, it's been very difficult, especially if you're not honoring the new you and you're trying to go into the old ways. So just trust, have courage and faith. Those are your parents, courage and faith, and go forward. And we will create this utopia that humanity is going to be, but you're going to be seeing two realities in one, where, yeah, a lot of the darkness will drop as the years go along, but not everyone's going to be on the same threshold of capability just because they don't have the same information hardwired into them. And through education, we can help bring the planet to where we want to go, because this is what you guys do as, you know, a soul family of light, so to speak. You came here and you do this to worlds. This is your job. And one day we're going to realize that all this time that we've lived on Earth that feels like forever in the 3D really was like us going to work for a day. And you know, and we're going to say, wow, that was a tough job. I'd rather go to a different planet next time. Let's go to an easier one. I need a break. But it's the one that's caused us to grow the most, because we've lived the experiment and we've remembered who we really are. And it's not even about the Earth. It's about you remembering who you are, and releasing the veil of illusion that forgot that you never died, you've never been born, and you exist all throughout the universe.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And just to add to that a little bit, yeah, a lot of these different programs running in our artificial matrix, a lot of us are still living in now, they're designed to separate us from our true self, just forget who we really are. Because, and they're also designed to make us believe that there isn't some like great unifying order that exists in nature and in the cosmos. It makes us think that, for example, the first gene key, the shadow, is entropy, which says that, hey, everything is just going to go cold, get colder and colder until everything is, you know, all the energy in the universe disappears. I mean, that's totally insane. Like, that's not even possible. Like, you know, so, but in fact, there is a grand cosmic order that is based on harmony, on the laws of harmony. And as we come back into harmony with our true selves, we actually gain the help of the entire cosmos.
Right.
That's what a lot of people can't believe, you know, like, that it's that easy. But in a way it is. It's not meant to be difficult. It's just about taking away all these false programs that have been put upon us, these spells, these projections that aren't true, that are false. And when we return to our true selves, we're left with the perfect program that was designed by the cosmic consciousness for our life, and which will always succeed, is destined to succeed, absolutely. And yeah, it has the help of the entire cosmos backing it. And nothing can possibly defeat that power. Nothing can possibly defeat the power of the cosmic consciousness, you know. So this is absolutely inevitable. This change that's coming, this great change that's coming very, very, very soon. I feel it. And yeah, it's just a matter of us. We have to do the individual part. We have to get back to our true selves so that we can live in harmony with not only ourselves, but with everyone else, with nature, with the cosmos. And that's the end goal, you know, and expanding, you know, the cosmic evolution. We're adding to it by being alive, you know. We don't need anyone to authorize our existences. It was already authorized a long time ago, you know. We don't need all these authorizations that we think we do. We authorize ourselves, you know. So
I think going on what you're saying about when we operate within universal harmony and higher universal principles of virtue, which the gene keys are there to give us information in a sense of how to do that. Okay. We get back in sync, and then we rise to the point where then our brothers and sisters in other places, it's like another country coming in to help, you know, can help. They're not doing it for us. We have to rise to them. It's about rising up. one of the reasons we call the show Rise Up is for the phoenix that rises within you. You're becoming your real self. But also we as humanity are rising up to the point where we're meeting them. And they can assist, but they can't do it for you. And we're arriving to this point where then when humanity has reached a availability and a frequency threshold, we're going to expand beyond Earth, and you're going to see more. Some of us already have. And they've been there all along, but we came in and incarnated in to be the physical vehicles to receive the light and to alter the systems and to give the opportunity for the planet to arrive to what naturally it's going to anyways. The Mother Earth is going. We know this, right? So we have to go with her, and we're going to get into this, you know, much bigger experience that we've been in. So we've been in the Truman Show, you know,
Yeah.
and there's something beyond the walls. There's something much farther beyond the walls. And it's up to us to do it from the inside out, not rely upon something outside you to do it for you. However, when you're receptive and when you trust your feminine gates, or when you know, receptive to other people's gifts and you trust them, then they accelerate you forward instead of you being stuck and having to do it yourself and be the ego you that doesn't need any help. That's not how you're wired either. You're wired to receive help. That's why I knew that I couldn't do what Richard's doing. I don't have the capability. I did not. I admit it. I have different capabilities. I could do it vertically, but I couldn't do it horizontally for an extent. I'm joking, but I could do it from will of intent, but I couldn't do it from mental ability and know-how. And that's receptivity, right? That's saying, hey, someone else is better for the job than this, or someone else could help make this grow, or someone else can help me heal my wounds. Be receptive and be open, because we're here to do this together. We're the ones really helping each other. It's not some alien being saving us. It's us doing it together as a tribe to cause the collective to change, so that then we can go into this golden age and arrive to a new plane of freedom beyond even Earth. So release your attachment to that, to what free reality actually is. And we'll be grateful that we're going to look back at the cause, which is the story, and say, wow, this was amazing. We made it. Now, I don't want to go back for a while. Let's do something new.
Yeah. So I think we're going to wrap up here in a second. But let's see. Were there any other topics you wanted to talk about?
No, I think I talked enough. I look forward to being able to make you the star of the show on Sunday. So tune in. I'm going to say this. Sunday, 10 a.m., Rise Up Radio Show. If you go to my Facebook page, you'll see it there as well. The YouTube, we encourage you to watch it on YouTube, but if not, you can also watch it on Facebook Live. If you watch live, you can comment with us. You know, we can feed off of you and we can go back and forth. If you can't watch it live, you can still always watch the recording. And Richard will be the guest of the show on Sunday, and we're going to dive into this and more. And I really look forward to having you be in the spotlight, being interviewed, man. And as far as what I want to finish with Cosmic Design, I'm just proud of it. I'm still learning. I'm a baby with it, in the sense of mental understanding of it, not in regards to is it the truth or not. That I knew. It was just a matter of when it was actually done correct. And I finally, for my own self, am ready to say that you've done that, at least to the point we're at now. And I know you'll constantly learn more and evolve more. And this group's growing. And I can't wait to see where it's going to go in the future, because you know, this is something that's extremely important for humanity to know. Not even just the cosmic design, but as you've mentioned, Richard, the aspect of real time, real calendar, and the real astrology of what this system has been placed in to get us out of sync with the galaxy, so that we can become in sync with it again and stop being a virus and be, you know, synergistic beings.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks again, Jarin, for letting me do this interview with you. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I want to give you a lot of credit for really catalyzing this entire cosmic human design process. And yeah, man, without you, I don't know if I would have ever. Who knows when I've even learned what I would have even learned about sidereal astrology, or like, you know, been prompted with that question in my mind, like would the gates change, you know, or whatever. So yeah, I do want to give you a lot of credit for that. And yeah, man, I can't wait for the show Sunday. It's gonna be epic.
It is. Tune in if you haven't seen the Rise Up Radio Show. It's a great show. Greg Schumacher and Victoria Elizabeth going to be leading it with me. We're going to have Richard on, and we'll have all kinds of stuff on there, and you can see our old shows. It's my most fun time of the week. So we're so excited to have Richard on. And Richard, I just want to say this. I'm appreciative of you honoring me in that, and I'm glad that I got to play a role. Most importantly, I wanted to be able to see it right in reality so that we all could be benefited by it. But the reality is, this was just our story, and you would have found it and done it in some other way. It just so happened that you and I connected to where the universe said this would be the quickest, easiest, best way. So this is what happened. But you would have found it, and you would have done it anyways, I'm sure.
Well, I appreciate your confidence in me, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, tune into the Rise Up Radio Show Sunday. I posted an announcement in the group. I'll probably post another announcement today to give you some more details about that and some of the very interesting topics we're going to be discussing. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody. And this video, I'll upload it also to YouTube. So you can find it there on the Cosmic Human Design YouTube channel. And also you can watch it again in the Facebook group, of course. But yeah, thanks for joining me, Jarin. And yeah, great discussion, man.
Thanks for having me on, man.
All right. And thanks
Appreciate
for everybody.
it. Thanks, guys, for watching.
See you guys.